call to order the Monday, February 22nd regular board meeting. Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Grant?
Here.
Mr. Carpenter?
Present.
Mr. Guido?
Here.
Mr. Leeds?
Here.
Mrs. Stone? Here.
Would everyone please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1.3, any changes to the agenda?
Yes, it is recommended that the board approve the following change to item 6.3. Ryan Evans has been removed from the extracurricular contract approval.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Thank you, Mrs. Stone. Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 1.4, approve the agenda. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Thank you, Mr. Guido. Mrs. Cahall, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Section 2, discussion and comments from the board, starting with 2.1 legislative. Mr. Leeds.
This past month, there's been a lot of discussion in Columbus about the school funding, as you well know, and about what's happening with the monies being taken from the schools for charter schools and for ed choice. So I had an opportunity to call a Mr. William Phyllis, who is the Ohio Coalition, is the chair of the Ohio Coalition for Equity and Inadequacy of School Funding. And I talked to him today, and I said to him, you guys are going about this the wrong way in my estimation. He said, what do you mean? I said, we kicked the can down the road for how many years? Nothing's being done. You need to get back to the state and say, now the school districts in Ohio are having to have virtual learning, even though everybody says you need the kids to get back in school. Well, there are some people that don't want their kids to come back to school because they're afraid of the COVID, which is their, is their ability to do that. So we have to have virtual schools for these kids. A virtual school, because all the kids can go back to school if they want to, a virtual school is ed choice. That is their choice. We ought to be able to say that Monroe local schools and the other school districts in Ohio can say that we have an ed choice school in our school buildings. Therefore, or in our school formula. Therefore, we should be getting state funding based upon ed choice. So if a kid today goes to an ed choice school, they take $6,000 from us, or somewhere around there. When the kid comes to school here, we get less than $3,000 for it. So it costs us an additional $3,000 out of our pocket. So, but if we have our own ed choice schooling, then we get that $6,000. It's taken out of one pocket and put it in the next, but we still get it. So he said to me, he said, we never thought of that. I said, well, that's the only way you're going to get them to listen is to go after the pocketbook. So he took my name and number and he said, do you mind if I call you back and get you involved? I said, no. So we'll find out, but we got to do something. Public schools have to do something because we're losing money every day. So I'll let you know, keep you informed about what comes of this.
Good.
That's all I got.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Item 2.2, Butler Tech.
I just want to give an update on the Natural Science Center. The final design presentation was presented at our last board meeting. It's password protected, and I was trying to get it to where I could have it for tonight's meeting so you can see what the building looks like, but it's almost totally complete. It'll go out for design here soon, blueprints. So I think that you guys will be very happy with what they've chosen to do. I had a discussion about the Matsons and the history of the property. So part of the design that they're going to do is they're going to put in an apple orchard, which is pretty cool for the historical history of the property. So plus horses like apples, so that'll be interesting. I'll have a picture. Actually, it's a video that they put together. It's interactive to see that. I do want to share. I am the legislative aide for Butler Tech. We did have Bill Blessing, Senator Blessing. He's the Coleraine senator. He was discussing the Patterson bill. It's actually in the Senate right now where they're going to make their own bill. They don't like portions of the Patterson, so they're crafting their own. Long story short, he did say that they're probably 99% sure that action will be made this year on school funding. So that's a pretty big number he threw out. So what that looks like, I'm not 100% sure. I know that their bill is going to be sent back to the House, and Senator or Representative Cupp is the Speaker of the House. So clearly he's going to hopefully support his bill, but hopefully they don't argue too much over some of the changes that they're going to make, and they go forward with that. So we had a big talk about cap funding and that. So
Was that part of the, is that going to be part of the bill?
It is. It's actually hopefully gets rid of most of that cap funding, even if they phase it out over time. They're just trying to put real dollars behind what both bills are actually end up costing. So I'm hopeful that that's real positive news from the
Good news.
yeah, so we're sure to see what it is. We do have 3 new members that I didn't share at our last meeting. Michelle Novak is the Middletown rep. Pastor Shaq Matthews is from Hamilton. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's been pretty involved before she got on the school board. Roy Miller is from New Miami. So a lot of change in that board over the last several years. So, and then we kept the leadership the same. Michael Birdie from Fairfield is the president, and I'm the vice president this year. So that's it. Any questions?
No, thank you. Good news. Section or item 2.3, finance.
So we had a finance committee meeting this evening, and good news, we have a complete clean audit. So that's awesome news for 2020. Yes. It obviously, we were looking at the unofficial copy, and once it is official, it'll be posted on the website. And we also wanted to point out something. Mr. Leeds and I decided we would take some airtime if Mr. Grant would allow us. In the financial highlights, one thing that was added this year, which I think we'll all be glad that this is mentioned, the Ohio Department of Education provides revenue through the School Foundation Program, and while there is a formula in place, the actual funding is capped for the school district. So that funding may not increase for more than a specific percentage. For fiscal year 2020, the foundation funding formula calculated that the school district should have received $13.8 million in the state foundation revenue. However, because the school district was capped, the school district only received $7.3 million from the state foundation. As a result of the pandemic, the state reduced funding to all schools in fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 2021, including capped districts. The school district has been capped for at least the last 5 years, and as a result, is a heavy reliance on the community for operating funds. I thought that was really great that that was all added in that, and it's public record.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Progress.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So stay tuned.
Thank you.
Yep.
Item 2.4, MEA.
Nothing at this time. Just thankful we were able to come to an agreement to roll over the contract until next year. So both sides collaborated on that, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Moving on to section 3, communications, comments from the public. Seeing none, we will move on to section 4, presentations. Mrs. Demers.
Yes. So tonight we have a special presentation We have Mr. Dan Scholl here with us this evening.
Thank you. I want to make sure Holly knows what a tremendous job you did. There's no questions asked, right? Good job. On behalf of my family, I'd like to say thank you so much for the opportunity to come before you and share something pretty special to us. 4 years ago, when Mrs. Scholl read, he said, "Who's Patty Jo?" PJ is Mrs. Scholl. When she retired, she and I talked about what we could do to give back to the school. We were residents here from, 1950. I was a resident here from 1956 until got out of college and so forth. And then when we got married, my parents, I really didn't kick them out, Brett. That's not true. I heard that. Was that you then? Anyhow. But we didn't kick them out. They moved to Florida, and so we bought the house from them over on Yankee Road. And we spent until 28 years ago, we moved over to her farm in Mason, her parents' farm. And I thought it was a great deal. I was getting a lot more acreage and not have this big debt. Wrong. I just had a bigger debt. But it was a great move, great family, and that you'll hear tonight is one of the reasons why we've been so, we've done so well in the donations. So many people that she went to school with, and farmers in the area, and people from the church, Methodist Church there in particular, have come forward as well. So start off just a little bit to explain what the foundation is for. It's named Patty Jo Scholl Foundation, and it's typical of a 501c3 where that you can get credit on your tax returns and so forth for donations. We are really concerned about kids that get lost, that aren't picked, that aren't chosen. And the good kids, they might not be straight A's or straight B's even. Some of them are more like me. Tom was a good student. I was just hanging along. But eventually, they do well in the world. And it's wonderful that some people do recognize that, but there's not enough thanks given to the kids that show leadership qualities of character and perseverance. They plan to get the job done, and typically well done. So our whole thrust for student scholarship is to those kids. And we feel that that's a tremendous need, and we'd like to do what we can to fulfill it. The second part of that particular, of the grant itself, of the foundation, is to deal with staff. Teachers are recognized, typically, not enough in my book, but they are recognized. What about the custodians? What about the cooks? What about the assistants? What about the secretaries? What about all these other people? If you're a principal, you're a superintendent, you know if you don't get along well with them, you're in trouble. Because they do things for you that nobody else would do, and they typically do it well. So we want to recognize those people. There will not be a monetary amount given to them, like the students. We'll give the students $1,000. And the students have a choice. Let me back up to that just a second. They have a choice if it's for college, or if it's for a trade school, if it's to be an apprentice, working. We've had kids that work for farmers as apprentice, for a fellow that worked with leather and apprentice to him, and so forth. And we would help out and pay any kind of tuition or any kind of upfront programming to those individuals so that they would reach out to these kind of kids that have this as a career option. We're losing a lot of that in our everyday life. If you had any frozen pipes in the past week, you know how tough it was to try to get it plumbed. That's a great skill, and many people don't have it anymore. So, that the scholarship for that group of people. The second is a recognition. The third is a recognition of residents. Residents that are always here, always ready. I'm going to help. I remember back in the days when we had cinders on our, we'll call it a track, up at the old stadium. We had parents out there and even neighbors that didn't have any kids in school. Maybe they did at one time. They'd come up with the rakes and the shovels and take the big chunks that we got from Monroe, cinders, and so we're thrilled to have it, by the way. Got those out of the track at least twice a season. And if it rained, it was another time. So they tend to float up. Those people worked their tail off to make things as good as they could for all the students and athletes here. Same goes true for music, band. Paul Monroe, tremendous teacher, tremendous advocate of this school district. And people would, go crazy to help out Mr. Monroe, anything that he wanted done. So, people like that, recognition, we're still looking for them. We still have them here. And so we need to identify them. And those that are residents. Lastly, it's a group of people that are not necessarily residents in the school district. People from Mason that know PJ and know it's our family, and neighbors that have really come forward and want to do everything they can to help out. And they have through their donations and so forth. So that would be 4 groups that we could very honestly recognize as people that enhance the school district. Enhancement. It's a big word that just means you give your heart to it. They say in Kentucky, since I went to school there, University of Kentucky, we bleed blue. I hear they bleed blue and gold, and that's a form of enhancement. I brought tonight a gift that will be tough. This is from our farm. We'll look at this first. This is, you see the sunflowers? The sunflowers on a quilt made by our cousin. He's a judge in Indianapolis. She just does this for fun. And so for fun, she said, how about I make this for your family? And Elaine keeps wanting to sell it or raffle it or do anything with it. Sorry, it's got my name on it. But we are going to try to talk her into making the little squares and selling those. I never dreamed this would be this big. I want to make a small blanket. That's my daughter Stacy, and my son Bradley, and their children, and Natasha, Bradley's wife back there, and Griffin. He's a 4-year-old going on 14. And Gabriel, across the street from him. And Brady, one of Stacy's 2 twins. She has a boy and a girl. And then the older, almost adult group, who's 7, is Grace. She has a birthday in 2 weeks. So that's our family. The others have other things they have to do tonight. So back to this. This is a white oak remnant of a tree, the largest tree in our woods. It was between 65 and 70 feet tall, 3.5 to 4 feet diameter. And PJ wanted to have her ashes strewn around this tree. So when she had her brain surgery after her first stroke, on April the 8th, you all might remember, we had a major windstorm. Straight line winds of up to 80 miles an hour. It took us 3 hours. So when she came home on June the 16th, right before our 50th wedding anniversary, and my birthday, we won't talk about that, but anyhow, came home and the kids had a party for us and everything. She said, I have a plan B tree, since that one's gone. But she said, let's make something out of wood. So she and I don't like rustic stuff. So this is a presentation to the school Board of Education to accept. Sorry I couldn't do that before. And lastly, my daughter happens to be an artist. And she teaches art at a school you probably heard of, King's. And she drew this picture. Give that to you also. Okay. Any questions? I haven't met all of you all personally, but unfortunately they know me. And so I hope for the opportunity to meet you all. And I have you a little, don't have much a little bookmark here. It's a bookmark that has PJ's picture on it and sunflowers. If you're familiar with the Mason area, south of Mason, there's a farm that has a couple acres of sunflowers on it that people go to from, well, we've met people from far ways, Michigan, Kentucky, and Indiana. So we just come to take the pictures of the kids and so forth. So that's been our family tradition for years to love sunflowers. So with that, and I'll get you all some bookmarks. You have any
Dan, that's
questions?
your property, right?
I'm sorry?
That's your property.
Yes. Ken Natorp Nursery rents that, and he uses a couple acres. I don't know how much longer we're going to do it. We had some problems this year. So
So can I fill in some blanks here? So that's the connection with the quilt that is there, the sunflowers, and then on the foundation has a logo.
Elaine is wearing the
She's our model.
logo.
Yeah. So
Help us,
this,
Vanna.
so the sunflower is kind of a homage to that. So we are fortunate enough where they have raised enough money to get a $1,000 scholarship to a graduating senior this year. The application for that scholarship is almost complete if it's not complete now. We've been in contact with the guidance department to get recommendations or nominations for that scholarship. Again, it is going to be a perseverance and self-reliance scholarship. It really is a lot like the scholarship that we have that we transfer the funds to. So, you know, Mrs. Shule was taught here at Monroe for even before I was here, and then she was the first principal at the elementary school once we became our own district. So lifelong Monroe Hornet, and the impact that she had on just thousands of students and staff members. I mean, she was a mentor for everybody. Thinking about some of the things that really separated her. She just was that type of person that you never wanted to disappoint, right? If you disappointed Mrs. Shule, you were going to have a bad day. So she was an amazing person, and the real honest truth of that, Dan, is that she lives in so many people. And in so many corners of this school still today, and her impact will never go away. So the bench itself, I think, is just a fitting reminder that will be there for decades and decades to come. So thank you for sharing that with us.
I didn't share the names, I knew I was running out of time, so I took privilege of being an old administrator. We're going to have the Golden Hornet Award, which is what we give to the students. That's $1,000. And then we're going to have the Legend Award, which we're giving to some staff members. And then we'll have another award, Blue and Gold Award, for the community members. And you're not lucky enough to be here award, those who live outside of this, no. We'll call that the Golden Rule Award because they do unto others. And we'll have plaques. The plaques weren't finished today. I was going to pick up a couple and bring over. We can't find a Golden Hornet. So that held us up. We'll get one.
Sorry, if you're interested in making a donation, I couldn't think of a better cause to get behind, the Patty Jewell Foundation.
This is so you.
Will accept $5 or as much as you want to get. Just any amount helps build, a future for more scholarships for the community. And that's really what this is about. So,
Even though we have over 30,000 now donated in the past, when we start in November, it takes 25,000. 4% of that we're allowed to use for a scholarship. So we're aiming for 50,000 yet this year, and be able to give 2 scholarships to kids and do the other things. If the staff members, they'll get a plaque. They'll have their own plaque in the hallway, so they'll get one to take home. And the residents, their name will be on the wall in the hall as well. I'm going to add on to the school. The next $2.5 million will be another wall.
That's great.
That concludes anything I stumbled through. I apologize. She's the best.
Miss her.
Thank you very much.
And I think our whole goal is really to keep her legacy alive in the Monroe community, as well as supporting our students.
And may I ask, is it time that we could do a photo?
Absolutely.
Dan and bench and our board members?
Yep.
Because this is kind of our public launch of this foundation, so.
Wayne, who would you like to, do you want the foundation members in here and board as well?
Yes.
Okay.
You
Want to bring it over?
Yes. Start playing my PR stuff. I don't want to be. I'm great, thank you.
Elaine is the president of the board of directors for the foundation.
Elaine, you gotta get in it. Everything. Yeah, I got it. You're kind of like the Vanna White before the club.
You want to stand up, right? Oh, you stand up. We have Elaine said that.
All right, please, guys, come on.
Brady, the grandkids. Come on down. Hustle. Will you guys be in our picture?
Go get it, come on.
Oh, you got the girls on there. I like your shoes.
Come tall, lady.
I know, I'm like, I don't want to block you. I'll be behind you guys. I'm much taller. It's all good. It's all good. I know. Everybody smile.
Say smile, we can smile for you.
Your eyes.
Thank you.
I really like your shoes.
Jody,
Very
Melissa,
smart.
Don, several other directors are here tonight as well. We have 9 directors, and Elaine's in charge.
That's about right.
Do you want to leave this here?
I said we'll get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you have your address?
the bench, since she was the elementary school principal for years, the bench is going to go in the rotunda as you walk into the front of the school. So a lot of parents and kids sit there, you know, so I think it'll be an awesome place for that.
Great tribute.
Thank you.
Next section, 5, treasurer's business. Item 5.1.
I'm asking the board to approve the minutes from the tax budget hearing, the organizational meeting, and the regular meeting, all held on January 11th, 2021.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Guido? Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 5.2.
I'm recommending, okay, let me give you the treasurer's financial report. We're continuing to plug away, but this year with no surprises. When I say no surprises, I mean no surprises on the bad side. So that's what we're looking at each month to make sure that we're on track. So as of January 31st, we're close to estimates in both revenue and expenses. This month, we did receive an unexpected payment of $169,000 from the Bureau of Workers' Comp. And last month, as I mentioned, we received $76,000 from the county auditor. And so this is helping to offset the loss in investment income that we're seeing, which I'm estimating it to be $200,000 for the end of this year. Interest rates are dropping, and that's one of the things we did project at the beginning of the year, not knowing, but some good things are offsetting some bad things here. At the beginning of the year, ODE said they would reduce our foundation payments by $242,000, but we were just notified by them last month that they would reinstate $132,000, and they started that this month, reinstating that loss. So this is still less than our foundation funding in 2019. So along with being capped, they are putting increases in funding on hold. Out of the $7.5 million from the state we receive in foundation funding, they do deduct $1.2 million to go to community schools, special ed scholarships, and also out of the district for open enrollment. So we make up some of this loss with open enrollment coming into our district, but this is money that goes out. Our revenue, our current fund balance is $26 million and $434,100. Overall, our balance is $32.7 million. With 5 months still to go, we expect to spend $376,000 more than what we take in at this time of the year. But I'm looking for this to change for the better, but it depends on additional tax revenue that we're expecting in the spring. So I'm asking you to approve my financial report. January 31st.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Guido. Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 5.3.
I'm asking the board to approve the bond fund for January 31st, 2021.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Mr. Guido, any questions?
Is that where it's supposed to be?
Yes, it is.
Awkward silence.
Ms. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carried. Item 5.4.
I'm asking the board to approve $275,376 of health and wellness funds that were received from ODE for 2021. And also approve Fund 457 to account for these funds.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Thank you, Mrs. Stone. Any questions?
This is specific use funds, right? I mean, it can't be used for just anything. It has to be with.
Wait, say that again?
I said, this has to be specifically used for,
Yes. Right now, it can be used for current expenses such as psychologists or counselors or anything that we are paying for mental health and social well-being. And so at this point, we don't have to add things that are new because we do have quite a bit in place. So that's what we're going to use it either for psychologists or for social counselors.
and do you expect these payments to continue in the future, or is this?
From what I hear, they'll continue in the future. Yeah, but I don't know how, if restrictions will be applied to it in the future. We don't know.
Any other questions? Mrs. Gale, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 5.5.
Finally, I'm asking the board to approve the contract with the All-American Publishing for publishing the sports schedule of events, and this is no cost to the district, but they do give us 10% of their sales for advertising.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Stone. Thank you, Mr. Guido. Any questions? Is this kind of like the advertisements for the scoring table for basketball and for the scoreboard out on the football field?
I think they're publishing the schedule.
That's, okay, so it's just gonna be on the schedule?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't get a great deal, but we get something.
Okay. Any other questions? Mrs. Kale, please call the roll.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you, Mrs. Gallo. Section 6, Superintendent's Personnel Business, item 6.1.
Yes, thank you. It is recommended that the board approve resignations from the following employees.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
So, second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions?
I'm missing.
Mrs. Gale, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 6.2.
It is recommended the board approve the following long-term substitutes.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Guido. Thank you, Mrs. Stone. Any questions? Mrs. Gale, please call the roll.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 6.3.
It is recommended the board approve the following extracurricular contracts.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 6.4.
It is recommended that the board approve stipends for the following teachers who mentored during the fall semester student teachers from Miami University.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Thank you, Mr. Guido. Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And item 6.5.
It is recommended that the board approve stipends of $126 for Natalie Woodruff, who mentored a student teacher from Wright State University during the recent fall semester.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved?
Thank you, Mrs. Stone.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions?
I'll just make a comment that both universities covered the cost of the finance.
Yes, correct.
Mrs. Gale, please call the roll.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Superintendent's other business, item 7.1.
It is recommended that the board approve inter-district open enrollment in grades kindergarten through 12 for the 2021-2022 school year in accordance with board policy.
May I have a motion, please?
So, second.
Thank you, Mr. Guido. Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions?
I mean, we have very limited numbers, right?
Correct.
You're supposed to talk for longer.
I can talk to that.
Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And item 7.2.
It is recommended that the board approve the 2021-22 junior high course of study as presented.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved?
Second. Thank you, Mrs. Stone. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions? Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. And item 7.3.
It is recommended that the board approve the MOU with the MEA, which extends the master agreement currently in place through the 2021-2022 school year.
May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions?
Have they, you guys talked about a date next year when this is going to start back up, or?
Same time next year.
Not at this time,
Same time.
but probably it'll be about the same time, January, February timeframe.
I'm hopeful that the added time gives time between COVID and everything else to go. But I think it's smart for us as a district to wait and really focus on everything else that's going on, especially adding another thing. So I appreciate everybody doing that.
Yep.
And I'm very down.
Anybody else? Ms. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carries. And item 7.4.
I'd like to recommend acceptance of the following donation from Cincinnati Insurance Company in the amount of $75 to gifts from the Heart Fund.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Stone.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Mrs. Cahill, please call the roll.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Item 7.5.
Yes, I'd like to recommend to approve receiving the donation of the Chlorid-Assist Torch UVA disinfection system from Lemon Township. The estimated value is $25,000.
Thank you.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Stone. Any questions?
That's a cool name.
Yeah. I'm glad you heard that.
Tower.
Where will this be utilized?
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity.
They're like wanting to know if they get their hands on it.
Yeah.
It's on this campus currently. I know that they're currently the steam room, Joe, is one of the high-touch, a lot of, objects. That's one of the specific places. They've got, he's staged through some others, but evening cleaning mostly, not during the day. It does leave a slight burn smell
Yep.
in the room for a little while, so.
Yeah, every night,
Toaster.
my art teachers have 2 carts that they hold in the steam room, and every night they were having to wipe down all their markers and everything. Now they just lay them out, and this thing just does the whole room.
That's
So
awesome.
it saves them a ton of time.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Thank you, Lemon Township.
Yes, thank you.
Tom, did you have something to do with that? Township.
I just saw,
Yes.
I just had a thing today,
Yeah.
I have a webinar Wednesday. Philips is coming out with some new UV lamps that they're coming out. I'll be sitting in that webinar that will disinfect and everything. I'm sure they're pretty expensive. All right, Ms. Gale, please call the roll.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye, motion carries. And item 7.6.
Yes, calendar of upcoming events, and we get to add for our spring performance, You Are a Good Man, Charlie Brown, to be performed on April 30th, May 1st, and May 2nd.
Nice.
So, it's nice to be able to add that to the school calendar, so.
May 1st and 2nd, you said?
April 30th, May 1st, and May 2nd. You Are a Good Man, Charlie Brown will be our high school spring performance.
Cool. Fun.
Section 8, Superintendent's update.
Yes, just a few items. So Friday, just a reminder, we have another remote learning day. Our staff will be getting their second COVID-19 vaccination out at Fairfield High School. We are very appreciative to Butler County ESC and Kroger and to Fairfield High School for making this happen for our staff. Just want to remind everyone though that with the vaccinations, we do need to continue to mask, wash hands, and distance. And what I thought was great news today is taking a look at our daily attendance report. We had one of our best attendance reports today. I showed that out with the administrators this afternoon. So I think that's a great sign. We're hearing from the health department that the number of vaccines are surpassing the number of COVID positive cases, so we're heading in the right direction. And then we are seeing a lot of positives here in our school. Like I said, our attendance is improving each week. We're not seeing as many staff out, and so therefore the internal substitution has decreased as well. So seeing a lot of positive with us staying full go with our students. And again, just want to thank everyone for their hard work and teamwork. I know it has not been easy, but I think there's light there at the end of the tunnel, and it's getting closer and closer every day.
It's getting brighter.
Yes. Also, just want to say congratulations to our winter sports teams. We have some that have finished, some that are continuing on in the postseason and setting records and making history. So that's fantastic, and I appreciate all their hard work. Also, want to recognize one of our 7th graders, Ava Heitmeyer and Chloe Clay. They competed in the Daughters of the American Revolution essay contest, and they both went all the way to the state level. So that was really great for both of those ladies. And then again, just want to thank, I know that they have left, but the Patty Schul Foundation, just really appreciate all those efforts that they are doing to recognize and to support our staff and students. So we really appreciate everything that the foundation is doing to support Monroe local schools. So that's all I have this evening.
Thank you. Before we go to section 9, adjournment, I'll start down at the end with Mr. Leeds. Anything you want to mention?
Well, again, I want to thank the staff for the job that's being done, the fact that they're keeping these kids in school. That's tremendous. And there's not, I don't hear anybody complaining about it. The parents love it. And just want to again thank you for doing a great job, and sacrifices have been made. And thanks to Jesse, to you guys for erring on the side of safety and calling school off with the inclement weather. It was certainly was inclement, and I don't know what happened to the salt truck, but I believe that works out. Anyway, Kathy, thanks again to you and your staff.
Mr. Guy.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll kind of piggyback on what you said. I mean, the staff has done a phenomenal job. Keep up the good work. I have 3 people at my work that have just tested positive, so my concern is that this vaccine is rolled out. Some people are opting not to get it, and that's certainly their choice. I just want to say, as a reminder, that this virus is still here, and it's still impacting people, and it's still taking lives. So take the vaccine if you're able to get it, and take this serious. Keep doing what you can do, especially when related to school. We want these kids at school. Most of us saw the video that happened out in California with the school board out there talking, and they were that district's not in school. So I'm thankful that our staff, our superintendent, our county, everybody has agreed that school can be safe, and as long as we mind what we're supposed to be doing, and we're doing that. So let's keep these kids in school. Thanks for what everybody's been doing.
Mrs. Dunn.
Just kind of echo what everybody's been saying, and I just want to just say Patty Scholl was the first person that my daughter met when we moved to Monroe when she was a nervous little girl. Believe it or not, Lindsay was shy at one point. And met her in the summer going into 6th grade year, and it's just, I still remember that day, and it's like I texted her during the meeting. I was like, we just honored Mrs. Scholl, and it was just like, just the sweetest message. That lady, if you didn't get to meet her, it's just, it's so cool. This bench, and just the stories, and just, I think this was just a great night for that reason. She's an amazing lady, and we just miss her. We just want to give her a shout out. And that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Carpenter?
You guys did a great job, so I'll let your message carry on.
All right. I'll echo what they said. We said it early on, it takes a village, so thank you to the entire staff. Everyone in the district has done a phenomenal job getting our kids in the building, number one, but keeping them in the building and getting them educated. So thank you to everyone involved. We as a board, I can against speak from everyone, we definitely appreciate it. I know our winter sports teams, to echo what you said, I understand our girls did not do so well tonight, from what I understand. But they, 2 games in Division I school history. That's fantastic, so the future's bright, and our boys are still playing, so that's awesome. And spring sports are right around the corner, and it's kind of funny because last year spring sports were the first ones that were canceled, and so now they're going to finally get to play. So thank you again to everybody. Other than that, that's it for me. So with that, we'll move on to section 9. 9.1, adjourn the meeting.
It is recommended that the board adjourn the meeting 7:23. May I have a motion? Thank you, Mr. Guido. Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Mrs. Gale, please call the roll.
Mr. Guido?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Stone?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye.
And Mr. Grant?
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you, everyone.
Did you guys watch the